Welcome back to an American Catechism, episode number 69, for another holiday edition, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on the 2nd of July, 2026, where it's currently 93 degrees. So which holiday is it? 4th of July, Independence Day, is coming up in a couple of days. Is that what we're celebrating today? No, actually, I'm looking back at yesterday and Canada Day. So we're going to talk a little bit about history and then sample some Canadian whiskey. Just the facts. We'll be looking at Crown Royal Black. And it comes in this, like all the other Crown Royals, it's got its own little velvet bag there. Very nice, exceptional packaging by Crown Royal. I've already poured my glass here. So Crown Royal Black is a 90 proof edition of Crown Royal, but I've also heard that the mash bill is a little bit different here. So I'll discuss that in a little bit. This can be had for a reasonable price here in Fort Worth. You're looking at really just $4 or $5 more than the regular Crown Royal, if that, $3 or $4. I mean, $26, $27 for the 90 proof edition. So that's actually a very good price for what you get here. Tasting notes: molasses, spices, leather, tobacco, wood, some cola flavors as well. This is really one of my favorites. Very good. Much better than the regular 80 proof version. So I gave it a score of 88. Letter grade for drinkability, solid A. And my recommendation, again, it's a favorite. It's well worth the price. It's Canadian whiskey that I think bourbon drinkers will like. And so if you're used to eschewing Canadian whiskey, I would say you could give Crown Black a try. And if you've given up on Canadian whiskey altogether, again, this one's a little bit different. Okay? Now, Canada Day celebrates the coming together of Canada as a nation. And so this is dating back to the 1860s. And so you had the different provinces of Canada, basically different colonies. And what happened is the Crown, the English Crown, decided to have this all combined as a nation. And then different territories, provinces came in later, like Alberta. I've got the Alberta flag up there. And currently, there's a lot of political goings on in Canada. And the whole reason I have the Alberta flag mentioned up there is one of the political trends that is happening in Canada is a separatist movement. According to their constitution as a nation, individual provinces can separate. So, that was never part of the American Constitution, and so we fought a war over that, and the separatists lost. But in Canada, apparently there's a legal constitutional way for them to separate. And there's a huge separatist movement right now in Alberta. Alberta's been described as the Texas of Canada. So you've got a lot of farmland, ranch land, woodlands, you've got oil and gas, minerals. So it's kind of a politically conservative area of Canada that does not like the liberal tendencies of the national government. So anyway, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I don't know if anything's going to come of it. They did raise enough signatures for a petition to put it on the ballot. So it's actually going to go to a ballot in Alberta to separate. And then what would happen? Become its own independent country, I guess. Would they join the United States? I think there would be a movement both here and there to try to do that. I don't think that would be successful. I mean, if it actually happened, it would be a success, but I don't think it's going to happen. But in the Trump campaign a couple of years ago, there was talk of taking over Canada. I think this is what Trump knew was going to happen, is that there's a separatist movement within Canada. So at any rate, keeping track of Canada is important. They're our biggest neighbor. They're only a neighbor to our north, obviously. And so what goes on in Canada does affect us. Now, I do have some books here. Last year I went more into the history of how Canada formed as a nation. And so you can go back and check that video from a year ago. And I covered some books as well. But here, this is a book about the Korean War. Did you know that Canadians fought in the Korean War? And so this is about a battle. It says Canada's pivotal battle in Korea. April 24th, 1951 was a lonely moonlit night in Korea. On a godforsaken hill, a few hundred Canadian soldiers waited for the fight of their lives to begin. Soon, Chinese communist troops in their thousands swarmed around them, plunging straight towards Seoul, the South Korean capital. These Canadians were all that blocked the way. This is the story of the first battle by Canada's first soldiers in the Korean War, the 2nd Battalion of Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. These volunteers were straight from central casting. Truck drivers, construction workers, kids just out of high school, and board farm boys. Outnumbered and outgunned, this people's army of amateurs beat off some of the toughest troops on earth. The battle that has become a legend takes its name from Kapyong, a nearby peanut-sized village. It had become a mythic Canadian story, except this is mythology that's real. So, Canada in the Korean War. And then we've got the War of 1812 here. The Field of Glory, the Battle of Chrysler's Farm, 1813, when the United States invaded Canada. And Lords of the Lake. This is a story about the naval war on Lake Ontario, 1812 to 1814. So again, the Americans were fighting the British and Canadians in the war. So there's a lot of weird history with us in Canada. And then one of my favorites. This is one of my favorite books of all time. The Viking Discovery of America, and by Helga Instead and Anne Stein Instead. And so this is the story of Leif Erikson's journey and discovery of the little village that they set up on Landsaw Meadows in Newfoundland. So this is the story of the archaeological discovery of that, tracing their route and figuring out that, yeah, the Vikings really did land there. And so Canada, part of the great saga of the Vikings in American history. And then we've got other Canadian history books here as well. All right, on to the whiskey. This whiskey was released by Crown Royal in 2010. But the Crown Royal family goes back to 1939. And Samuel Bronfman of the Seagram's family all the way back to 1857. Seagram's went out of business in 2000, and so this is now owned by Diageo, a British company. It is made at Gimli, Lake Winnipeg, Manitoba. For history, 5 out of 5. Bottle, label, and marketing. The bottle is kind of a standard Crown Royal bottle shape and design. Clear glass, chiseled in the typical Crown Royal way. Gold plastic screw-on lid there. The label is black and gold with some red. It's a typical, very classy, nice appearance. So they do some intelligent design here. I mean, the bottle shape is kind of like a crown shape, matching their name, and the whole history behind this, where it was released for the visit by King George to Canada back in the 1930s. The black does not get the marketing, though, that regular Crown gets. But this is a significantly better whiskey, in my opinion. The first ad that I found on YouTube was from 16 years ago, and it was directed at a black audience. The reason I bring that up, for whatever reason, now Crown Royal is incredibly popular around the world, is the largest selling Canadian whiskey brand in the world. And it's incredibly popular here in America, particularly amongst African American community. They're not strictly that. In my professional life, where I work with some extremely wealthy Texas families in my career, Crown is very popular amongst the white royalty of Texas, if you want to call it that. So this is not strictly a Black American whiskey, but it is incredibly popular with Black Americans. And I've got a friend that I work with who's a Black American, and Crown is his go-to, definitely. Now, it's funny that he prefers the regular Crown, as do most people. When I mentioned this to him, he said, no, this is really too strong for his taste. And that's not unusual. 80 proof whiskeys are popular for a reason. All right, so the ad that I saw on YouTube was exceptionally well done, I thought. I saw another ad from 15 years ago that was very short, just a 10-second, very basic ad, and I thought that one was ineffective. And then I saw a third one from 11 years ago that was also short at 11 seconds, but was effective, I think, much better. So the ads are out there if you go looking for them, but I've not run across any in just accidental. In other words, Crown has not marketed themselves to me, okay, on my social media. So for bottle, label, and marketing, I'm going to say 4 out of 5. And the reason it's not a 5 out of 5 is they don't market this. I mean, they just don't. Everything goes to the basic edition. And I guess I understand that. That's the most popular edition. But for me, this is the better whiskey by far. So 4 out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance of the whiskey, I mean, you can see in here that it's really quite dark. Now, Canada by law does allow for food coloring to be added and other substances. Okay. So is there maple syrup in here somewhere? I'm pretty sure there is, but I can't prove it. But I think that's a common additive in Canadian whiskeys, because I do get maple in a lot of Canadian whiskeys. Go figure. So this is dark. This is like dark tea color. A little bit too light for coffee, maybe. And then here in the glass, I'm using my Canadian glass, obviously, instead of a Glencairn. But that's still pretty dark. I mean, that's light coffee, dark tea. And I prefer darker whiskeys, and so this one does get a 4 out of 5. Composition. Now, the website says it's matured in charred oak barrels. And this is a non-age stated whiskey, so it's at least 3 years old by law. But I think a lot of the stuff in there is much older. Now, Daniel on the Whiskey Vault channel says that the big difference here is that Crown Black has more of the flavoring spirit distilled in pot stills than the base spirit in column stills compared to the regular Crown. Now that I found to be very interesting. The way Canadians make their whiskey is very different from the way Americans make whiskey. And so they're going to mash, ferment, and distill, and even age their various grains separately. And so you've got a column still element in here that is essentially vodka. And that's going to be distilled and aged separately. And then you have a flavoring whiskey that's going to be probably rye, and that one will be pot still distilled. And then after they age, they will blend them together. So that's a real complex method of making whiskey, if you ask me, but it works for them, right? And so essentially, there's more flavoring whiskey in the Crown Black than in the regular Crown. And I find that to be fascinating. So it's not just that this is 90 proof, it's that they made it a little bit different on purpose. So for composition, and again, I don't know the mash bill. I don't know how much corn versus rye versus barley that you're going to have in here. And again, there's no age statement. So typically the way blenders work is you got some new spirit and then some that's much older. So I'm going to say everything from 3 to 8 years is in this bottle. So for composition, 12 out of 15 points. The nose, now when I prepared my notes for here, I was using a Glencairn, and you can get a much better nose through a Glencairn than you can with this rocks glass. So I'm really not smelling much of anything here. It is darker. Okay, so like I'm getting molasses, spices, leather, tobacco, wood, but it's all faint. Whereas in the Glencairn, it was much stronger. So I gave it an 8 out of 10 the other day when I was evaluating this. But in a rocks glass, you're just not going to get as much nose. Taste. The taste is true to the nose. It's real. I find it to be rich in flavors. Bolder, obviously that 90 proof helps. I do get some cola flavors as well. And one of my favorite drinks to do with Crown is a Crown and Crown. Some Royal Crown Cola with Crown Royal whiskey. There you go. So it does have a little bit of cola flavor going on there. To me, this is really very good. When I did my Canadian whiskey tournament over the last couple of winters, Crown Royal, the 80 proof version, came in last place. I mean, Black Velvet beat it out. Canadian Club, Seagram's VO, even Canadian Mist beat the Crown Royal. And so I'm not a fan. Would I turn it down? No, I mean, it's still okay. I mean, it's okay. But I would just never seek it out again. But Crown Black, this is a favorite. Definitely. So taste, 22 out of 25. And there is a little bit of maple in here. I mean, I still get that. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Get a medium to rich mouthfeel. So it doesn't have the thinness that the regular 80 proof Crown has. Decent burn in the mouth, but again, it's a little bit below expectations for a 90 proof. And I think that cola taste goes into a coffee tobacco on the finish. And the finish is medium to fairly long. So mouthfeel, burn, and finish, 13 out of 15. Very pleasant to drink. Versatility and flexibility. Now, obviously my favorite way is neat. And it is strong enough, though, at 90 proof to be okay on the rocks. I will say that this makes a killer old-fashioned. I used last time a mix of Angostura and Turkish tobacco bitters. Sweetener was maple syrup. Had some Luxardo cherry and some orange peel, and it came out awesome. So let me go make another old-fashioned, and I'll be right back. I am back with another old-fashioned using the Crown Royal Black. Now, I changed the recipe from last time, and the last time was outstanding. This time, instead of maple syrup, I used a turbinado sugar cube, muddled in there. And I did use some Angostura bitters, but instead of the Turkish tobacco bitters, I used Aztec chocolate bitters. And then I still have a Luxardo cherry and an orange peel. So here we go. Oh my. That absolutely works. So again, you can tweak your old-fashioned recipes. You can alter them according to the whiskey. And one of the good things that I really like about Crown Black is those darker notes. And so that's why you can use the maple syrup or the dark turbinado sugar. You can use those different kinds of bitters, and you can tweak how this turns out. So this is solid for a cocktail. I like it neat and as a cocktail. So versatility, flexibility, 5 out of 5 points. Price, value, and availability. Here in Fort Worth, Texas, Total Wine had it for $25.99. Fantastic price. Specs $27.34. Goody Goody $25.99. So great availability, great value for the price. 10 out of 10. Bonus points, again, this is going to be a favorite of mine. It's flexible, has a great price, great availability. Absolutely 5 out of 5. Giving me total score of 88 and a letter grade for drinkability, a solid A. My analysis and recommendation, I think it's well worth the price. I think it's a Canadian whiskey that bourbon drinkers will like. And again, 90 proof, but the burn comes in a little bit under that level, I think. So it's gentle enough, it's smooth enough, it's naturally sweet. You get the cola flavors, coffee, tobacco, even chocolate flavors going on there. So if you look at Canadian whiskeys and say, oh, no way. And this is common in American whiskey drinkers. I mean, even though this is second in for years and years, comes in second place for sales behind Jack Daniels. Okay. And so it's already popular. But man, within the whiskey community, there's so much hatred towards Canadian whiskey. And I'm just saying there's a lot of good stuff there too. So, what's next? Another Canadian whiskey. In my National Rye Tournament, it's time for some Lot 40. So that's what's coming up on my Texas Rye Whiskey Studies channel. That'll be next. Well, it may not be next. I mean, July 4th, Independence Day here in America is coming up. And so I'm probably going to do something special for July 4th. So that'll be this weekend. It may be Saturday the 4th, it may be Sunday the 5th, but we'll do something special for Independence Day in America on American Catechism. This is Stab the Dragon out here.